Hey everyone, welcome on to Branded. Today's episode might just rewire the way you think about your brand because today we're going to be talking about what even brands with $1 million budgets still get wrong. Because the truth is, your brand isn't always what you think it is, right? We think it's one thing, we create it into something, but in the end, even the brands with the best fucking looking websites with the most gorgeous logos, the best marketing assets, even those brands, sometimes they still get this part wrong. Because when I was reading through LinkedIn recently, I saw a post and this helped me trigger this conversation for this podcast because this is something that we've been talking about the last few episodes. If you've been catching up, early 2025 episodes, we've been talking a lot about the feeling more than the features. Because when it comes to your brand, it really isn't what you think it is. It's not what you're showing people. It's what people feel, right? That's what your brand actually becomes, is that feeling, that emotional resonance that happens on the other side of people consuming your content, looking at your website, interacting with you personally, right? That's what your brand gradually becomes. It becomes that feeling, that emotional resonance that is on the other side of connection. It's not always what you think it is from the get-go, right? The thing that you just are showing to people isn't always what it ends up being. And I found this to be really an interesting topic and a great topic to sort of piggyback onto all of the other great stuff that we've been talking about recently. So we're going to dive in a little bit deeper into some quote unquote ingredients of emotional resonance, how to actually start to incorporate it into your brand, some questions that maybe you could be reframing to help you dig into this a little bit more so you can kind of do a self audit and determine if you are really capturing and conveying the feeling that you really want your brand to have. So today we're going to talk about the feeling that your brand creates and how to intentionally build that feeling through the story that you're sharing, the trust that you're building, the connections that you're making, and the experiences that you're having. So let's dig in. First, let's talk about the feeling behind it all. Your brand is that emotional imprint on people. It's what people remember when you walk out of the room and they're still thinking about it and they're chatting with their friends about it, right? That emotional imprint sticks with people so much longer than a product or a feature ever will. Those things are so fleeting and honestly, a dime a dozen these days. Everybody's got some sort of product or service that they're offering. So what really differentiates you is the emotional imprint that comes with working with you. So it's not going to be your fonts. It's not going to be your homepage, right? It's not going to be the filter settings that you've decided to use on all of your reels on Instagram. Yes, that's part of consistency, but that isn't the thing that sets your brand apart. It sort of becomes one of the threads that creates the tapestry, right? You can think of it that way. And how you make people feel when they interact with you is yet again one of those threads. So you can sort of see your brand as this beautiful tapestry that you're building out, and each piece of it that you decide to weave into your brand becomes part of that cohesion, part of that consistency, and it starts to create that emotional resonance because it's almost like it's just layered, right? It sort of layers on top of itself, and each little step that you take helps create more and more of that emotional imprint. So here's a few examples for you just right off the top because I know you know these brands. These are some well-known brands that get it right. They sort of hone in on that emotional resonance, and that's really the jumping off point for all of their messaging. Nike. Nike isn't about the shoes, right? It's about the inner strength that it takes to decide to lace up those shoes to go for that walk or go for that run or go for that workout, right? That's what they've built their brand around. It's not about the product or the features of the product, right? Oh, these shoes are super cozy. These are great for arch support. Yeah, of course, people are going to find out those details when they actually decide to go in and make a purchase on something specific. But that's not what Nike is marketing. They are marketing being unstoppable. They're marketing the inner strength that it takes every single human to have to make a choice to lace up those shoes to go for that run. So, are you doing that in your brand, or are you talking about the shoes, right? Here's another example for you. Apple. We talked about Apple recently in an episode as well. Apple isn't really about the technology. I mean, it is, but it really is more about the creative freedom that you have when you use Apple products because all the devices connect to each other, right? That right there is creative freedom. Having the ability to utilize our iPhones in place of really high cost photography equipment or videography equipment, right? That's creative freedom. Being able to take one device and use it in a variety of ways. Oh, I'm texting. Oh, now I'm doing a photo shoot with somebody and it's really high quality images, right? So Apple is really honing in on the emotional resonance of creative freedom. Yeah, of course it's tech, but that's not where their marketing is like, that's not the core of it. Here's another really good example, Disney. Disney is not about movies. It's about imagination. It's about creativity. It's about bringing joy, right? So when you think about these three brands that I'm pretty positive everybody listening to this knows, Nike, Apple, and Disney, when you think of those brands, I know you're not thinking of tennis shoes when you're thinking of Nike all the time. You're probably thinking of various different apparel, things that you were going to make you feel like you want to go for that workout, right? When you think of Apple, you're not always thinking about technology. You're thinking about how that technology is going to help you create something else, right? So it becomes sort of a means to an end, but you want to talk about what's the actual thing that these people are looking for, right? People aren't going to Disney World because they're super pumped about a new Disney movie that's coming out. They're going to Disney World because they want to feel connected to joy and imagination and creativity and childhood whimsy, right? Like that's what these brands are focusing on. And that emotional resonance, that imprint that they are making, that's what lasts with people. That's what keeps people coming back again and again to experience their products, their services, and their offers. So, these brands, they've quite literally, like, they've nailed it when it comes to emotional resonance. And it's a great way to hold up that mirror, that lens, and say, okay, let me do a little bit of self reflection on my own brand and look at what is it that I am really offering. Because if you're only leaning towards the direction of, here's what I sell, here's the thing I sell, here's the thing I do, you're missing the opportunity to convey, here's how your life is going to change because of what I do. And I know that that's a super, super powerful statement to make, but I feel like it's necessary to say something so extreme, like, here's how your life is going to change because of what I do. Because quite literally, there is somebody out there looking for exactly what you do and looking to work with a person who is exactly like you. So show up, right? Show up and make it known that the feeling that you're creating in your brand is exactly the thing they're looking for. So I'm going to dig into the ingredients of emotional resonance. Now, this is sort of like, think of this as, those posts you used to see all the time, like this or that kind of thing, like chocolate or vanilla. So think of it a little bit like that, but we're going to go through some like, here's what you're probably doing, do this instead. Because these really simple little shifts, this simple reframing of the concept is going to dig so much deeper into your brand and create that emotional resonance that you might be missing right now. So most people kind of miss this part, and your brand is less about the output and more about the impact. Output, of course, is important, obviously, right? That's what keeps you in business. Um, Output and income, right? But the more impact that you actually are creating, that's creating sustainability. That's creating long-term growth. Impact is something like, if you've ever heard people say in network marketing, build wide instead of deep, that was a concept that is relatively similar to what I'm saying here about building impact versus output. So take your work, spread it everywhere, create this impact, and then let it soak. Let it soak into the ground. Let it take a root system. Let it become something. Let it harvest and grow into something beautiful. But you have to nurture it. And reframing and asking some of these questions is going to be really helpful. So, first, emotional connection. Instead of saying, here's our product, maybe say, here's how we change lives. Because what you want to be doing is creating messaging that people can feel, right? That they can resonate with. So no more, here's our product. Lean more towards, here's how we change lives. And you may have heard me say before, the benefit of the benefit. That's what this is. You're not talking about the product. You're talking about the benefit you get, not even from the product, but because you've taken the product consistently, you now have all of these other amazing things happening in your life. Reputation. Instead of saying stuff about yourself, right? It's not what you say about yourself, but what people say about you when you're not in the room. That's reputation. So build that, right? Trust. It's not saying the right thing, but following through consistently. That is how trust is built. And little side note here, if you build systems in your business, that is going to back you up on all of your promises, right? If you're promising somebody that you're going to reach out to them 48 hours after you have a meeting with them, if you have a system set up in place, you're not missing that. You're not missing that deadline. And that is another notch in your belt on building trust, right? So think about the ways that you can be utilizing systems and your websites and your socials and all of the tools, right? All the tools that are out there. Think about how can these help you create this emotional resonance, such as trust. It doesn't all have to come from you, like you don't have to be the one that is consistently providing like manual support all the time. Trust can be built because your systems are set up and it helps you honor the promises that you're making to people. Your story. It's not a pitch. Instead, it's an invitation to join a journey. And it should feel real. It should feel human. It should feel relatable. It's okay to be a little bit vulnerable when you're sharing your story and all the parts of it. The values that you have. Instead of using buzzwords, how about make decisions, like even really hard ones, that stick to your values? It might mean saying no to a client that just isn't aligned with you, right? It might mean saying yes to something that scares the shit out of you, but it aligns so deeply with the thing that you want and the values that you have that you say yes anyways because you know it's just going to work out. Experience. It's not just one standout moment that you talk about, but every tiny interaction from your onboarding to your offboarding. These are things that you share with people. These are parts of your experience that you can weave into your messaging. Culture. It's not what you write on your about page, but it's how you operate daily with clients and collaborators. So you see how this emotional resonance and the feeling that you're creating inside of your brand, it's not the fonts, it's not the imagery and the visuals and the logos and all of that. Those are part of it. They become visual representations of the feeling that you are creating. So the culture, the story, the trust, the emotional connection, the reputation, everything that you're building inside of your brand comes from you. And then everything that happens after that, right? Let's say you hire somebody like me to do a website for you. Everything that comes after that is a reflection of the emotional resonance that you've already baked into your brand. So when I say, the culture you're creating, it's not what you're writing on your about page, like this is who we are and what we do. Cool. But is that actually a reflection of how you're operating daily with your clients and your collaborators? So make sure that these things match, the identity of your brand. It's not just about looking different. It's about truly being irreplaceable in the space that you've created, right? You are the one and only. You are the thing that people are looking for. The vision that you have, it's not just about hitting next quarter's goals. It's about guiding people towards long-term transformation and success. Hitting next quarter's goals, cool. Yeah, that's great. I'm sure every business owner wants something like that. But that's not the vision. The vision is guiding people to long-term transformation and success. So bake these kind of topics into the messaging that you have. And I'll put in the show notes for you. I'll have to go back and write them in, but I'll put all of these here for you guys so you can see the reframing of these. Instead of doing this, do this. It'll be helpful for you. And then lastly, impact. Instead of talking about a product, it's the purpose that creates the change. So when you think about all of these variables of emotional resonance, we've got emotional connection, your reputation, the trust you're building, the culture you're building, the identity of your brand, the vision that you have, the impact that you're making. This really helps you understand that a logo isn't going to carry the weight, right? A logo is not going to carry the weight of all of these different ways of connecting, like truly connecting and creating that emotional resonance that leaves an imprint on somebody. So when you walk out of the room, they're still standing there talking to their friends going, wow, I am so glad that I met that person. I cannot wait to have a conversation with them and work with them very soon. I love a beautiful brand and beautiful design. I mean, obviously that's work. That's the work that I do. I absolutely love doing that. But like I already mentioned, your visuals should reflect the emotional heart of your business, not replace it or be it. The emotional heart of your business is you. And that feeling that's baked into your brand starts with you. And all the beautiful visuals and the really intentional brand design that is created afterwards is simply a reflection of that. So ask yourself, what makes people choose you? And more importantly, what's going to make people stay with you? Be repeat clients. Buy your offers again and again and again. And this is why brands that last, sometimes they're not the loudest or even the fanciest. But I can guarantee you, they're the real ones. They're the ones that convey emotion, feeling, connection, trust, vision, impact, culture, reputation, all of those ingredients of emotional resonance I just listed. These brands, they're the ones that help it feel real. They make it feel safe. They make it feel like just a no-brainer. Yep, I'm home. This is the business I need to work with. So here's a couple simple actions that you can take to help you find that feeling in your brand. Create that feeling in your brand. Or if you feel like you're already there, confirm that you're doing this, right? So do a mini brand audit by simply walking through and like what you have to offer, walk through it from the eyes of a client. Click on all your buttons, book a call with yourself, buy a product from yourself, go through the journey that you are taking people on, that you expect clients to go on. Go take it for yourself. How long has it been since you've done that? Have you ever even done that? That is a fantastic way to do a brand audit and a really fast way to like catch mistakes, typos, old data, irrelevant information. Oh my gosh, you're going to find so much. And this is something I try to do. Gosh, I try to do it quarterly, but time is like, wow, going really fast. So I would say if you do this at least once a year, you're golden. But if things are changing really quickly in your business, do it more frequently because you want to make sure that you don't have outdated information, right? But do a little walkthrough of your own brand experience. You're going to see so much. Check out the tone that your emails have. You know, you've got those confirmation emails, those systems set up whenever someone buys something and they get that email or they download a resource and they get that email. Check the tone. Does it still match who you are and what you've become and the feeling that you're baking into your brand? If not, time to tweak it, right? How clear is the process? Are you finding that you're fumbling around or, oh, you can't find where the link was again? I'm telling you, your clients are experiencing this too. That's why this is so important to do a walkthrough of your own brand experience as the client. And pay attention to where people feel taken care of and where they might feel a little bit lost, because those are really, really fantastic opportunities for either highlighting how incredible it is to work with you or giving you an area of opportunity to pivot a little and revamp some of your work, because it's not going to always be 100%, right? Things are constantly changing. I have free offers and like resources that are linked into my emails and into my socials and all of that. And honestly, every 3 to 6 months, it's not that the information isn't relevant anymore, but it's that it sort of just gets a little bit like it becomes less and less part of the brand because I'm always having new ideas and I'm always doing new things and changing up things. And I'm just, I like to do those kinds of changes. People don't change that quickly all the time in their business. And so doing these sort of walkthroughs, really freaking helpful. So that's the first thing I would suggest is doing a mini brand audit and walking through your own brand experience and making all the notes on what could potentially be improved upon, what you're already doing that is freaking stellar and different than anybody else, because that's something you should be talking about. The second thing that I would do to help really bake the feeling of emotional resonance into your brand is clarify the emotional promise that you have. So, what does this mean? Asking questions like, what's the core feeling you want your audience to walk away with? That's a really, really top-notch question to ask yourself. What do I want people to walk away with after they work with me? And that could be one word, right? It could be one sentence. But revisiting that question, you're going to find out a lot. And really honing in, like, is it confidence that you want them walking away with? Is it clarity? Is it some sort of relief? Like, whew, big weight off my shoulders. I just got this task done, right? Is it making sure that, their messaging is hitting exactly where they want it to be? So, like, what is that emotional feeling you want your audience to walk away with? For me personally, I want people to walk away feeling a sense of relief, a sense of ease, a sense of connectedness to their own business, and a sense of excitement that they want to share it. So all of these emotional, all of these feelings, that's my core messaging that I want people walking away with. What's yours? The third thing, ask your audience, what stands out about your brand. And I know this might sound silly and it might sound a little bit scary too, because sometimes you don't want to necessarily hear what people think about something that's so close to you, right? Like you've built this thing, and that can be hard to hear some truths. But at the same time, you have to understand that there's a neutrality of building business. When you build something, it's like having a little baby. It becomes its own being. So yes, Social Jane Media, yes, Branded the podcast, they are creative little babies of mine, but they grow their own arms and legs and hearts and souls, and they become sort of their own little versions of what they turn into. And so asking your audience, like, send them a DM, hop on the telephone, send them a text, send them an email, right? Do a quick voice note, and you can straight up ask your clients, what about my brand stands out? After working with me, what did you feel? Ask these questions, because you're going to end up finding out answers that maybe even you didn't think were like part of your brand. And that's a really cool thing to do, because sometimes we are just too close to it. I did a podcast a couple months back with Chris Jones, and she does like brand story copywriting. And we were talking about how sometimes you're just too close to it to really be able to accurately decide what the thing is that you want it to be. And the metaphor that she used was like, let's say you're inside of a bottle, and the outside of the bottle is like, let's say it's all your brand, right? It's got that label on it. What that label has on it, what that label is conveying, the feeling that it's giving, the messaging that it has, sometimes we are so close to it that we can't really clearly see what it is actually portraying. And so asking somebody who's outside of the bottle, looking at it, right? You're in the bottle. You can't see the label. You're in the bottle. You're too close to it. Ask somebody on the outside and say, what do you see? What do you feel? What's one thing that you always associate with my brand? Because their answers are going to tell you exactly how your brand is landing. Hugely helpful. So if there's one thing I hope that you take from this today, is that your brand isn't just what you're showing people. It is what people are experiencing. Hopefully those two things become connected, right? They sort of have a bridge between them. But every now and then, what we think our brand is, because we simply are just showing, here's what we do, here's our product, here's our thing, buy our stuff. We're constantly just showing. Stop and feel. Ask people, what's your experience you're having with me? Because the experience that they're having, the feeling that they're having, the impact that you're making, that's actually what your brand is. It's the connection that you're building. It's the trust that you're nurturing. It's the story that you're inviting people into. And those are things that you cannot fabricate. They have to be real. If this episode helped you rethink your approach to your brand, or maybe you know somebody who could really use a good little reframe of the emotional resonance and impact that their brand is making, share this episode with them. And of course, leaving reviews is always super helpful, because it helps other people find us. But I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. Understanding the emotional resonance and the impact that you leave can help you create a brand that lasts, that's long-term, that's sustainable, and of course, is remembered. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'll see you next week in a brand new one. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to Branded, the podcast. Please rate and review, And for more information, visit socialjanemedia.com. I'll see you soon.